With nearly 30 years of experience, PowerMaster continues to design and manufacture the highest quality starters and alternators available. PowerMaster offers a full line of performance starters designed to crank over high compression race engines or to update your classic cruiser. When it comes to charging, the new hairpin replacement alternators deliver incredible output at idle to keep up with the growing number of electronics built into today's modern built muscle cars and vintage trucks. For more information, look up PowerMasterPerformance.com or give them a call at 630-957-4019.
Welcome to another episode of the Strange Motion Way podcast. I'm your host, Tim Strange, along with my current wife,
Carrie Strange.
She loves it when I say that. So I did a little Google searching on this guy. I know a lot about this guy. The most recommended person next to Bill Ganal was highly recommended. Mm-hmm. This guy is the most recommended. Get this guy on your podcast. I think he's been running his shop since, ready for this? 1977. Multiple American Most Beautiful Roadster winner. He restored historic hot rods and won at Pebble Beach. He's built cars for crazy people like Reggie Jackson, Eric Clapton, Jeff Beck, Neil Young, the Edelbrock family. He's a Robert E. Peterson Lifetime Achievement Award winner. He's a Starbird National Rod and Custom Car Hall of Fame inductee, Grand National Roadster Show Hall of Fame inductee, received an NHRA Lifetime Achievement Award at the Hot Rod Reunion. I also believe if he's not, he should be in the SEMA Hall of Fame, the HRIA Hall of Fame. He's probably built more 32 Ford Roadsters than anybody, and these have probably driven more miles than anyone in Roadsters. And they do the Brizio Family Driven Award at the Grand National Roadster Show. And even, this is the one very cool part, he has a around 30-year employee of Jack Stratton that is also inducted in the Grand National Roadster Hall of Fame. And he's the son of legendary Andy Brizio, which we're going to talk about that. His brother-in-law is on his t-shirt, Daryl Hollenbeck. His sister is married to him. So welcome tonight, hot rod legend, Roy Brizio.
Thank you for having me.
This is one that everybody wanted us to do, and nobody thought we'd pull it off. So thank you so much for doing our podcast.
You know what, Tim? You're a great guy. And when you asked me, I went, okay. I just don't honestly do much of this because I'm no good at it, I guess. I'm good at seeing you either. I'm good at seeing you at the Roadster Show and just hanging out and whatever, but ask me some questions if you want, and I'll do my best to answer anything I can.
Okay, so little Roy growing up, a lot of people know your history. Some people watching this and young people for the first time may not know how you grow up. And basically, your dad was hot rod royalty.
How was it
growing up as Andy being your father?
I was a real lucky kid. And I often say, I think my dad was lucky too, because he had a kid that he could haul around to all the shows and drag races and all that, and not put up a fight about what are we doing this weekend. We're going to a swap meet. I spent most of my early childhood at the drag strip because my dad's dear friend Jim McLennan owned the Champion Speed Shop dragster and the speed shop, and so we spent most of at least I spent most of my young early days with my dad either at Fremont Drag Strip, Half Moon Bay, Bakersfield, going with the McLennans with the Champion Speed Shop car. And then after that, Ted Gotelli, who Gotelli Speed Shop was also in South San Francisco, and we were all dear friends. And so we would go to the drags with them also. And then as my dad got into the hot rod business, Andy's Instant Tees, he hooked up with the guys in LA, Drag Master, Jim Nelson. I don't know if you're familiar with Jim Nelson and Dode Martin were Drag Master, and they were in San Diego area, and they built dragsters, and they came out with a T-bucket. And my dad was a dealer for them in the Bay Area. That's how he started Andy's Instant Tees. And until he started his own line of Model T chassis and bodies and all that, that's where it started out. and that was in 1966. So I was born in
Back then, T
56.
buckets were huge. They were everywhere. It's a good entry level hot rod.
Yeah.
You could put it together. You couldn't haul a big family in them, but T buckets were. I kind of missed that. I mean, I a little bit younger, so I didn't really get in on the tail end of T buckets being around.
They were really popular. Obviously, if you go back into Rod and Custom in the 60s and 70s, instead of 32 Fords, it was T buckets.
Mm-hmm.
That was the deal back then. And my dad was right in the middle of it. You know, I mean, I think a complete chassis he sold for like $700.
Oh wow!
That was a front end, rear end, springs, steering. It was body tabs on it. You just bolted a T bucket body on it, and you were done. And that was in the beginning. I mean, it was, there was Cal Automotive in Los Angeles that was building fiberglass bodies, and Kurt Hamilton, he was another guy in LA building T buckets, kind of like today when Pete and Jake and TCI and all that, but this was in the T bucket days. And my dad was like right in the middle of that. And
so that was essentially your first job, was working for your dad in the T bucket business.
Actually, my first job, and I think it was because my dad didn't want me to come work for him, was working for Sanderson Headers, because we were really good friends with Fred Sanderson. And he built the first T bucket headers for my father. And so my mom would come pick me up. This is when I was like, I don't know, 13 or so, and bring me over to Sanderson Headers. And my job was spray painting headers. And that's literally what I did. My finger was like this daily. I'm surprised it still works. He would just say, all right, start painting all those headers. So I did that for a year or so. And then I went to work for my dad. Once I got a driver's license, before that it was, Saturdays and Sundays, whatever. But then once I had a driver's license, it was get out of school and I had 15 minutes to get to work. My dad was a wonderful guy, of course, but when you worked for him, it was whatever. We went to work in the mornings, we got home whenever, and it was 7 days a week if we had to. Mm-hmm. So, I look back at that and I'm, my guys probably still to this day look at me and go, how can you go 7 days a week, 12 hours a day? That's how I was raised.
Yeah.
And
same me. I was a farm kid. So sun up, sun down, and then sometimes we put lights up and kept going. So yeah, I got that farm kid work ethic. Well,
you either get used to it or you don't, and I just got used to it. So I had a great childhood. I loved drag racing. I loved hot rods, and got to meet all my heroes, Ed Roth and George Barris, and I was building model cars when I was a kid, and I was around all those people, and it was met Jim Jacobs when Jake was working for Ed Roth, back, that was like in 1966, 67. Jake was working there at Ed's, and he would come up to the car shows in the Bay Area. And that was when we first met Jake, before there was a Pete and Jake's, Mm-hmm. So, we met, Bill Cushenberry and of course, Gene Winfield and all these guys. They would let me sit in their cars when I was a kid and pretend I was driving them. George Barris, he was great to me. Ed Roth was a dear friend of my father's, and we knew Ed really well. And so you couldn't complain about getting to do all that cool stuff, and I enjoyed it. I loved the drag racing. I loved all that stuff.
So let's talk about school. What kind of student were you?
I was a great student. I made it through high school. How about that?
There we go.
If I could go back, well, I'll tell you, my early report cards, which my mother gave to me, I don't know, 30 years ago, she found them. It was, Roy needs to spend more time paying attention to school instead of drawing pictures of hot rods and reading about hot rods. And it's actually on my report card. I was an okay student. I mean, I never went to college. I mean, it was right from get out of high school and the next day I was working.
Were you in
Look,
anything in school? Like, did you have auto class or did you
oh
play
yeah,
this?
machine shop, auto class. I took everything I could get. Back then we had trades. It was great. We had that. I wish they had that today for kids. It's sad that they don't have that.
We
Maybe
do here. We live just south of Nashville, and we talk about it a lot on our podcast. We have a county one, and the last auto teacher, he had an LS Swap 57. I was friends with him. Now the new teachers build an OBS hammer truck, and we work with some of the kids to help do registration packets after hours. Then we get them passes to go to the Good Guys show and stuff like that.
very cool. That's great you do that. Well, we don't have it out here. Not that I know of anyhow, not locally anyhow. But
it's not common everywhere.
Yeah, we go to talk to the kids a couple times a year, and you can tell the class of 40 kids, there's only 3 that even know like what a hot rod is, or even if it would be hard for me to be a teacher of the kids that don't really want to be there. Some of the kids are like, oh, I'm in this class because I don't want to take algebra, so they think it might be easier. But
that was us when we were in
but
school.
when I was in the hands-on classes, that's what I was paying attention to. But hey, if you can touch 3 kids out of 30, you're doing pretty good, I guess.
Absolutely.
That sounded wrong. Don't touch the kids. That sounded
don't touch them. So yes, I made it through high school fine. I wasn't a bad student, but I certainly wasn't a great student. I didn't care about history, and I was not really into math. And if as I started my business and things went on, I always looked back and thought I should have gone to college, taken some easy classes or whatever, just to prepare me for the future. But
so how many brothers and sisters do you have? Of course, everybody in the hot rod world knows Terry, that is married to Daryl Hollenbeck. And how much younger is Terry?
Terry's the youngest.
Okay.
So my dad and mom got divorced in 1962, and I was 5. And my sister, I had a sister, Kimmy. Kimmy, she does the t-shirts. She was the one who did all the t-shirts with my dad and still has her t-shirt company. She's doing the t-shirts. She was 2 years younger than me, or 3 years younger than me. So she was the youngest. Then Joanne is 2 years younger than me. And then I have a sister, Sharon, that was 2 years older than me. And unfortunately, she passed away 15 years ago. And then I have an older sister, Debbie. Debbie, actually, besides Terry, none of the other girls were totally into the cars. Debbie went to a lot of stuff in the early days. She was the oldest. And so, my dad drug her around to the car stuff. And
if some people don't know, Carrie, your sister, is actually a couple years ago got inducted in the Grand National Roadster Show Hall of Fame also. So that's pretty awesome. And
so Sue is my stepmother. And you all probably know Sue over the years. That's Terry's mom. Mm-hmm. And her and my dad got married in 63. So he got divorced in 62 and they got married in 63. So Sue is a wonderful lady. I mean, she pretty much raised us in the later years, and great gal. Put up with my dad for all those years, almost 50 years. So anyhow, she certainly helped my dad a lot, running the shop, and he would go off driving his hot rods with his buddies, and she would stay there at the shop, and she did a great job for him. That's for sure.
How many T-bucket kits do you think that he sold that are out there?
I would want to, you'd want to think a lot, but there probably wasn't that many. I mean, I'm going to say 50, maybe 50 to 75, maybe 50, I'd say for sure. The Volts rods, the ones they did with the Volkswagen engines in them, maybe there was 10 or 12 of those done. And every once in a while they pop up. But, in those days, you struggled in that business. When I wanted to start doing the hot rod stuff, I was working at my dad's shop. I mean, I was very fortunate. He had some good guys working in the shop. And they kind of took me under the wing. I asked a lot of questions. And I was probably a pain in the butt, but they were really good to me.
Mhm.
And that's where I wanted to do. I wanted to work on hot rods, and he had the speed shop by then. He had bought Champion Speed Shop, so he had a wheel and tire shop and the speed shop. And I just didn't really.
You got one of the, was it one of the first ones or one of the Champion dragsters on your shop wall too, right?
The one we have on the shop wall is actually a duplicate of the Kent Fuller car that was built in 1963 that they had all the success with. And it's not the original car. We don't know what happened to the original car. So we built this one for fun to go nostalgia drag racing in 1985. And then after it got outdated, we kind of put it back to what it originally looked like and hung it on the wall. It's been hanging on the wall for 25 years.
Yeah, I've seen it a couple times.
We've taken it down.
Who was the wheelman for the Champion dragsters back in the early?
Sammy Hale was the original guy that drove it back in the day.
Okay.
Jim McLennan drove it first, and then Sammy was 18 years old, and Jim gave him a chance, and he was a great driver. He became a really good driver. He drove for Champion. He also drove for Gotelli Speed Shop and a few other cars too.
Did you ever drive any dragsters? Because Googling stuff on you, one of the interviews you did online says you wanted to be a drag racer.
I did. I wanted to be a drag racer.
I still do.
I actually drove twice. The first car I drove, this buddy of mine restored. It was called the Magic Car, and my buddy Louis Poole was working here at the shop, and we restored that car in the shop just for fun. And it was a Kent Fuller car with a blown Chrysler. He ran it on alcohol. He never ran it on nitro. Anyhow, he was running it at Fremont, and this was probably in 1986 or 87. And he says, "Why don't you drive it?" Well, I got in it, and once they strapped me off and strapped me down and put me in the car, and I lit it off, got to the starting line, I went, "What am I doing?" I'm trying to look around the blower, and I'm going, this ain't for me. And I took a pass and went like 100 miles an hour or whatever, and I didn't even have to pull the chute. That's how slow I went. But I said, well, okay, I guess I thought I wanted to do this, but this isn't my deal. And then a couple of years later, we had another car that we ran out of the Champion Speed Shop, and it was a junior fuel car. And so it just had injectors, Hillborn injectors. That one I could see right down the center of the injectors, and I wasn't so freaked out. But I drove that car 145 at Bakersfield.
Nice.
I thought I was going 200, of course. And that was it. That was the only 2 passes I ever made in a dragster. And I'm glad I did it, but I realized this wasn't my deal.
Yeah.
And, but I'm glad we got to have the chance to do it.
So you working at, when he got the speed shop, was the T-bucket thing done? Was he just running the T-bucket in the tire shop?
The T-buckets, the T-buckets were coming to the end at that time. My dad was not interested in doing hot rods. He was like, "You can't make any money doing that. We're going to concentrate on the speed shop." And there was a couple T chassis left to build, maybe 5 or 6. And so I built those. And by then I was able to do that. And the T-bucket stuff was so simple, it was very straightforward. 2x4 rectangular tubing, 2 axle. We'd buy the front axle with the ends already welded on them. So it was a pretty simple, straightforward deal. So I started out doing that. And then, my heart was in 32s. I was really never into T-buckets. I just never cared about them. I like 32 Fords. And my first car was a 32 3-window coupe. I drove it to high school. One of my dad's buddies had it. And we didn't have any money. And he came to my dad one day and said, "I want to sell my 3-window." It was $1,500. And my dad had a good friend of his that he ended up building a T-bucket for, that owned a leasing company. And he said, "Hey, how can I get this car for my kid?" And he goes, "I'll buy it, and he can make payments to me." $36 a month was my payment. And I drove my 3-window to high school for 3 years, for 2.5 years. And when I graduated from high school, I had like $200 or whatever left on it. My parents paid it off, and that was my high school graduation present. And I wish I still had that car, but
So it was a running driving
Yeah,
32 for 1,500 bucks.
1976. That's when.
Wow.
No, I'm sorry, not 1972. And 1,500 bucks, had a small block Chevy with a 40 Ford transmission, column shift, early Ford Duran, 50 Mercury wheels. It just was a cool little deuce three window.
So
And
sometimes when we ask you stuff and it could get you in trouble or make you look bad, you can say allegedly in between it or in before it. So did you get allegedly any tickets for drag racing or crazy driving in high school in that car?
no, I got one ticket for
Yeah.
pedestrian right away. I rolled up to a stop sign, and this girl put one foot on the, was in front of a high school. She put one foot on the street, and I got pulled over. That was the only ticket I ever got in that car.
That sounds like a setup.
I got
You
plenty
should
of
have bought
tickets. Later on in the years, I got tickets in the hot rod, my roadsters for speeding, of course, but not for drag racing. Um, anyhow, so that car is kind of what it kind of put me into the business of starting my business. I had a blown small block Chevy in it, had a little Krager blower drive on it. The first thing I sold was the
it. When
blower.
did you put the blower? Were you still in school when you put the blower on it?
Yeah, when I my senior year of high school, I took the car that summer. I took it home and changed the engine in it, put a Muncie 4-speed and an 8-inch Ford rear end in it, and it was a 265 Chevy with a Krager blower drive on it. I've always had a fondness for those Krager blower drives, and I have a 3-window I'm building now with a Krager blower drive on it for myself, and that car kind of funded my beginning of my hot rod career. And but before that, I went to my dad and said, "Look, I want to start building hot rods." He said, "You'll never make any money," and he was right. You know, I struggled for a long time. Um, but I said, "Do you want to do this with me?" And he just said, "No, I'm going to stick with the street rod. I mean, the speed shop and the auto parts." And this was before he started Andy's T-shirts.
Okay.
So this was
So you went on your own before. So you never, that was a question. You never worked at the t-shirt company.
no, because that was years later. I started my shop in 77, and so I worked for my dad, all through high school until late 76. And so I sold the blower off my 3-window. I sold the fenders off my 3-window. And then I got down to the chassis. I sold the chassis. I needed money. That's kind of what funded my deal. And then the last thing I sold was my body. I sold it to Boyd Coddington. I had it. It was chopped. Because that's what I was going to do, is chop build it as a chopped car. And I had the body, and I sold it to Boyd in 1978 for $7,000. Boyd and I were friends by then, and we must have been talking on the phone. He goes, "Hey, I need a 3-window. I got a nice 3-window body." And $7,000 was a lot of money in 1978 for a body. For me, it was anyhow.
I run a hot rod shop for a living now. All these years, $7,000 is still a lot of money.
So that's kind of how I started. I mean, and then it just kind of just slowly by slowly, we were buying frame rails from Deuce Frame Company. That was Roy Fiesta, who owned SPE, Speed Products Engineering. He was building dragsters before that.
How do you properly say his last name?
Roy Fiesta.
Okay.
If you ask me to spell it, it's like FJ.
It's got a J in there. I know that. Yeah.
FJ Stead. Yes.
So you were always a San Francisco area guy, right?
Yeah. Went to high school in South San Francisco. I'm still in South San Francisco. Champion Speed Shop was in South San Francisco. I grew up in South City. I just never left.
Yeah.
So
where was your first shop on your own? Where were you at?
I stayed at my dad's shop for 1 year in the back of his shop. And then I moved to San Bruno. I was in San Bruno for 2 years. And I moved to.
Did you have employees right from the start? Or did you wait a little bit Or
I
you
had
brought in
one part-time guy that used to work for my dad. His name was Ray Kaleo, and he worked for my dad for maybe 2 years, and then he left that and went and worked at a union job. And then when I started my shop, I asked him if he could help me, and he came in the afternoons, and he would work, 2 or 3 hours a day in the afternoons. And that was in 78 and 79. And then in 1980, I moved to South City. I had a 2,500 square foot shop, and I moved to 5,000 feet thinking, how am I ever going to fill this, and how am I going to make this work?
And mostly, what were you working on mostly? 32s, you said
32,
just about
30,
all going?
yeah. In 78, 79, it was T-buckets a little bit, that and 32 Fords and Model A's. TCI came out with the Model A frame rails by then, and so I would get rails from them and then put all Pete and Jake suspension parts on them. We were very loyal.
Fat fender stuff didn't really start getting popular till what, mid 80s? So it was
Yeah,
mostly
we didn't do a lot of fat fender cars. 35 to 40s mainly is what we would do. Did a lot of 32s. I mean, if I fast forward a little bit, our recipe for a long time was Westcott bodies and, building Deuce Highboys, full fendered and Deuce Highboys, but a lot of Deuce Highboys. I mean, I think back now and they were so straightforward, small block Chevy, turbo 350s, 8-inch rear ends. That's kind of what we were doing. The cars were simple and we did a lot of them, not a lot in those years. I mean, as the years went by, it just kept growing. But
so when did you do your first in a hot rod, whether it was with your dad or building your 32s that you drove out to the Midwest for like the Street Rod National or something? When was your first trip out there?
Well, my first street rod trip was 1972, Detroit, Michigan, Street Rod Nationals. And we took my dad's C cab out there. I had my driver's permit. So my dad let me
have all the ribbon paint and stuff like that on it at that time.
Yeah, the Art Hemsel paint job, the wild looking Art Hemsel paint job, C cab. We took that to the Street Rod Nationals, and that was my first cross country trip. And probably the next time I did that was 1980, probably 80 or 81. Can't remember. 80. It was 1980.
So let me guess, you told everybody we're going back east. That's what all the West Coast people, you could be leaving California and just going to Las Vegas, but California people said, hey, we're going back east.
Everything was back east.
Yeah.
You could have been going to Washington and it was back east. Hey, where are you going? Back east. That was my dad. Everywhere he went, I'm going back east. No, Dad, we're not going really east. We're going, southeast. Anyhow, my dad made a lot of trips across country in those early years. And, I was at his shop working. My mom and I would be at the shop and he would go goof off with his buddies. He was a lucky guy. Yeah, they had a lot of fun. They did a lot of great trips. And I did another trip with my dad and Dennis Barney, our dear friend Dennis. I don't know if you know Dennis. He had his Model A Highboy Roadster before Boyd redid it, and they won the Roadster show with it. We went back with the Ducari Roadster Magoo had built for our friend Brian Burnett with the Ferrari motor in it. He came back with us. There was 4 of us. We had a T-bucket, Joe the chromer, who did all the chroming for my dad, and then for me also. He had a T-bucket, and my dad had a Deuce Highboy I built for him. So there was 4 of us. That was my next trip across country, and we went to the Street Rod Nationals, and that was another fun trip. And then after that, I didn't travel a lot until 1988 again, because I was building my business. And 86, that was the next time I went to the Street Rod Nationals. And then for the next 10 or 15 years, I did all 10 NSRA events. And in 88, when we built that B&M Highboy Roadster, the blue one with the magenta scallops, I hooked up with B&M, Jim Davis, who was the president at the time. he came to me and said, "Hey, you want to do a project together?" Because we'd gotten to be friends at that time. And he introduced me to Angelo Giampatroni from Ford Racing.
Mm-hmm.
Decided to put a Ford motor in this Roadster and put a B&M supercharger on it. Jim wanted to show the reliability of his superchargers, and we wanted to get a Ford motor in a 32 Ford and a hot rod. And in 1988, we took that car to all 10 NSRA events. And I drove.
So I got to work with Angelo in the later years, and I don't remember if it was you that introduced me at SEMA or Bobby Alloway. But
Bobby
I
was
know,
still friends with him. Maybe Bobby did. Yeah.
yeah, Bobby made the final call. Like when Angelo did some more checking on me, I know it was Bobby at the end. Is like, yeah, Tim says is what he says he is. So it was pretty cool. I got to work on a couple projects with Angelo also.
Angelo's a great guy. We just lost him, a couple months ago, and he's just a wonderful guy.
Yeah.
So we did that. We did that Roadster, and that's really when my business started kind of growing more and more. We were doing the Street Rod Nationals. We were bringing chassis to the events, and I was selling parts at the events and all. But we took that Roadster and took it to all 10 events and put 20,000 miles on it that summer. And what I had done is I took the first leg to Tennessee, and in those days we had no cell phones. I had nobody with me. I just got in the Roadster and by myself and went. But you didn't know any better.
A lot of the guys back then, at least around in the Midwest, they had CBs in their street rods. Did you ever do the CB thing on the road? No.
No, I didn't have a CB.
No.
But I did that first trip, and then from there on, I gave the car to journalists from the magazines. Pat Ganol drove it. Gray Baskerville drove it. Steve Anderson was driving or working for Rod Action at the time. So all these different guys drove it around the country. They would drive it from one event to the next event, and then the last event was Florida, and I drove it home from Florida. And but we put 20,000 miles on that car, and that kind of showed that we built cars that could be driven, and our chassis and all. And we were selling a fair amount of chassis back then. We were in the chassis.
See, a lot of people now, like the younger generation, younger than me, I'm 54. So now people are like, oh, we're driving our Pro Tour cars with these aftermarket chassis. We're doing the Good Guys Road Tour. Of course, she helps run the Hot Rod Power Tour has been around forever. But the younger guys, like 40 and younger, they don't know, like you guys drove, like the street rod guys in the 70s and 80s, like I don't remember seeing trailers when I went to my local rod runs because those guys were just driving them. And then later years, they got to be trailer queens, the Pro Street era and all that. But yeah, your generation proved right from the bat with the aftermarket chassis you guys were building, like they were road dogs.
Yeah, I mean, like Pete and Jake, they were driving, Jim Ewing from Superbill. Those guys would drive back east all the time. Mm-hmm. So they were driving their hot rods, cross country. My dad was. I started doing it. I mean, a lot of the Bay Area guys and LA and Bay Area guys think nothing of going across country.
I remember one time, I don't know if you were on that tour, but it was Good Guys Indy. And the one I remember was Dennis Varney driving his Amber Winter that Boyd redid.
Yep.
With all the whiz bang parts on it. And I remember him pulling in and the nose was just covered in bugs. And everybody kept saying, Dennis, you going to clean that? Nope, because nobody believes I drove it. He never wiped off one bug, I don't think, that whole weekend. I was like, I just remember I was standing by the gate when he rolled in that day. I was like, I'll never forget that. So,
and that's cool that he did that, and my dad did it in 1970 when he won America's Most Beautiful Roadster. He got in his T and drove to Peoria, Illinois. In those days, people didn't, that blew their mind. Like, who would win the Roadster show and drive across country in a hot rod? It was unheard of back then. And, even when Dennis did it, and when Brian Burnett won with the Magoo Roadster in 79, I mean, he drove it to the Street Rod Nationals. People didn't do that,
Yeah.
And it's kind of what we always, thought about. Hey, you build these cars to drive them.
Yeah.
I just took a trip, just put 1,000 miles on my Roadster 2 weeks ago. This last weekend, I put 375 miles on it. we drive them all the time. Went to LA Roadster Show back and forth. I mean, we just do it. We're in, I'm in a hot rod club called the Bay Area Roadsters. I don't know if you're familiar with them, but Dennis Varney is the oldest member in the club, and we do a lot together. And he's been in the club over 50 years, so we do a lot of roadster, runs. So, but anyhow, so help me out. Where am I at? I'm in about 1988.
We jump around. Yeah, you were worried. It was like, we said throw you a softball and off you go. So, if you were doing you did the 20,000 miles. You drove to every NSRA show in the B&M blower car. So what was next after that? I mean, we obviously can't talk about all your heavy cars because there's just been a string of stuff, and you couldn't pick up a street rod magazine, even a hot rod magazine in the 70s, 80s, 90s, and today, and not see a Brizio car, Rodder's Journal, and all that stuff. So, I mean, it's always Brizio's the hot rod guy. So after that, that proved that you were driving it, that everybody come beating your door down. It's like, I want a roadster that I can drive across country.
It started taking off after that, more and more. And the next thing that we did a lot of was the Americruises. Do you remember the Rod and Custom Americruises?
Yep.
I did 10 of those. They did 10 of those Americruises, and I did all 10 of them. And I will say that also helped my business, because around that time, people were wanting to build hot rods, and they were reading about it in the magazines. And I'd have guys call me up that I didn't know and say, hey, I read about you driving across country on that Americruise. I'd like to do something like that. What do I do? And I go, what do you want? And, well, I want to build a 32 Roadster, or, a 32 Coupe or whatever. And I go, yeah, well, here's what we do. And we would build cars for people to come out, pick them up, and drive across country with us. And I'll say that those years of doing the Americruises, that really helped me a lot. I didn't know any better that that's what it was doing. It wasn't like I was out promoting my business by doing this. It just happened. I've never been a great promoter. I mean, I don't know if you followed my career. I'm not somebody that, goes out there and said, hey, we build cars for Vic Edelbrock or, Eric Clapton. I just never did that. Most of it was out of respect to them. And if, they said, hey, Roy, why don't you mention that you're building cars for me or whatever, I would do it, but most of that stuff for me just came along anyhow without me not having to do any of that. And I've never been great at self-promotion. And
I know people, it's cool that you get to work for people like that. I've worked for some rock star people and got one in the shop right now, but it's just car people are car people. If they're into hot rods, customs, or whatever, they're down to earth. Or it doesn't matter if they're on a stage for hundreds of thousands of people playing, singing, or whatever. Hot rod people are just, we all have that common bond when we're hot rod people.
Yeah, we do. And that's just kind of how it all worked out, So ask me something, because I don't know where I'm at.
As you're in the stage of traveling to all the shows, and at what size employees, what size company did you have at that point
in the 80s? I went from 1980 to 2000 in a 5,000 foot shop, but by then I was outgrowing it. I mean, it was to the point that we were putting cars outside every day, getting to work. And I mean, I'd spend the morning taking cars out and the evenings bringing them back in. And then, of course, when the winter came, I was really struggling because we just didn't have enough room. We're busting at the seams, I guess you'd say it. Our business was taking off, and by then I probably had 10 guys working in the shop in 5,000 feet. And it
just a lot of guys in that size.
There's a lot of guys, and so, I was trying to find something a little bigger, and I had a guy I was building a 32.5 window for, and he came in the shop one day. We were BSing, and he said something about he had a building he was going to sell. And I go, really? I'm looking for something. I don't know if I could afford it. What do you got? And so I came over and looked at it and went, oh my God, I can't afford this. It was just too big. It was 20,000 feet. but I needed 10,000 for sure.
Mhm.
So I went to one of my customers, John Mumford. I'm sure you've heard of
Yep.
John. And, by then we were really dear friends, and we had built a few cars for John, and he was working on his car collection. And I told him about this building because he came to me one day and said, I know you want to find a shop. Maybe if you found something that had a shop next to it, I could, maybe buy a building next to you or whatever. Well, this building came up, and one day I said, hey, come look at this place with me. And it worked out perfect. So John and I bought this building. We split it down the middle. He took 10,000 feet. I took 10,000 feet. And that was 25 years ago.
Nice.
And, there was a time when I first got here, I went, whoa, I bit off more than I could chew. How am I going to make this work? And how am I ever going to fill the shop? Well, that lasted about 2 years. And in 2000, my business just took off. I don't know why it just happened. All of a sudden, it was like, there was a point we had 17 guys working here, and we ended up buying the building next door to us. And that was, 15 years ago. I mean, we had a paint shop over there, and Joey Campani. I don't know if you know Joey.
Mhm.
Joey does a lot for Bill Ganol, very good painter. Joey was working for me then, and he was painting chassis, and we were painting a couple cars here and there, but doing as much as we can to keep up with the demand. But we averaged 10 cars a year, sometimes 12 cars. I mean, it was crazy. It was absolutely crazy. How I made it through all that, I honestly don't know.
And still the majority was street rod stuff.
Right, everything. 40s, 32, three windows sedans, pickup trucks, whatever. But it was hot rods, it was mostly just hot rods. We dabbled in some 55 to 57 Chevys, and using the Art Morrison chassis. And then in the later years, we also used Roadster Shop chassis. And
So we've had Bill Ganol on this podcast, and we didn't get to everything to him. You got that gold 55 done. You let a bunch of them idiots take that thing on Americruise, didn't you? Like, they took it without you, didn't they?
yeah, it shows you how smart I am, huh? And literally, well, they worked hard on that car. I mean, that was their project. Joey painted it, and he did a beautiful job. Today, that car still looks fantastic.
I still love that thing. I'm a huge Tri-5 guy, so I just love that thing.
Yeah, and I always wanted a 55. One time in my career, I just wanted a 55, and
So
I got to build it the way I wanted.
55, or did you say I want a late model?
No, I wanted a 55 Chevy.
Yeah.
It was actually going to be a red and white 55 Chevy with a Muncie 4-speed and a 327, and then it just kind of, this is what happened. And so it was a bright, beautiful gold 55, and Billy and Joey worked on that car, and Ryan that works with Joey. The three of those guys, that was their project. They were totally into it. And when it got done, I just went, I know I'm out of my mind doing this. I gave them a gas card and some cash and said, hey, have fun. I'm going to pay your vacation.
They built it mostly, so if they screwed it up, they knew how to fix it.
Yeah, no, and they did. They had a great time. And I don't know if Billy told you this story, but there was only one thing they never told me. And we were having one of my shop parties here one year, and they were setting up the video screen, and I just happened to be walking through the shop on Friday before the shop party, and I glanced over. We were setting everything up, and I looked over and I saw the big screen with the 55 sitting on the Bonneville salt flats. And I went, what? I mean, I lost it. You guys took my car to the Bonneville salt flats, and they all went, he said, what, are you guys out of your mind? I let you drive it across country, blah, blah, blah. I didn't even care. I didn't worry about it because I knew they'd take care of it, and they were good guys. But I wouldn't have wanted them to put it on the salt flats. Well,
no. I used to always think I wanted to drive a hot rod out to Bonneville and drive on the salt until we drove a rental car allegedly to the rental car places because they tell you can't drive the rental cars out there. You can't get salt gets in places you can't. I got a friend that he had a tow vehicle, Dean Livermore, and 10 years after the last time he had that car on the salt flats as his tow vehicle, he got in a wreck and like messed his knee up, a really bad accident. And he goes, you would not believe the salt that was on the ground 10 years later from his dually. He says it was like 5 bags of salt come out of that thing after all that and power washing it and vacuuming it. And it's like the salt gets everywhere, man.
It does. And so I don't know how much they drove it. We promised we didn't drive it far just to take a picture. And it had some salt under it. They got it out. I said, you guys are going to clean that thing until it's absolutely spotless. And, I'm glad they got to do it. It was great memories for them. They had a lot of fun. And like I said, just except for that of going on the salt, but it was.
I'm sure there's probably knowing those guys and their shenanigans. I'm sure there's at least 5 more stories that you have yet to hear about.
I don't want to hear them. I hope they hold them to them. I don't want to know.
Carrie and her brother always get telling stories that things they got by with that her mom never knew. Yep. And she's like, I don't want to hear anymore. So yeah, it's the same type of thing. Those guys were pretty young working for you back then. They were.
I think Ryan was probably 16 or 17 or 18, and Joey was probably 20 or 21, and Billy was, I don't know, 24 or 25. I don't know.
Yeah, so Bill tells the story that he showed up because he's going to college up there. And the same day he walks in, of course, he's got the Ganal name that from his dad. So that probably helps a little bit. He admits that. And he says the parts runner quit that day. So I always call him, he's the hot rod version. Have you ever seen the first Fast and Furious movie with Paul Walker? Well, he's the parts runner, drove around in like a Ford Lightning delivering tuner parts to all the tuner shops in that movie. And I go, he's the hot rod version of Paul Walker. And Bill's like, I'll take that. That's okay. So yeah.
Well, Billy did a great job here. Yes, his father called me and said, my kid's going to school and going to college in San Francisco. You got anything you can give him to do? And I said, yeah, have him come by, but Billy, as you know, is very talented and he's very smart. And I used to like have these little meetings with him going, Billy, are you sure you want to do this? You want to build hot rods? You could be a professor or a teacher in a college or whatever. He's so smart.
Yeah, I got to always tell him, I go, he went to like real college, not like auto body college. Like real college. Yeah.
But he loved doing these cars and he just took to it here. Obviously he'd been around his father's shop, but I told him, pay attention, Billy, to all these guys that you work with. Ask them questions. If you show respect to them, they will teach you anything. But Billy's so sharp, he just picked stuff up right away. I mean, he just soaked it in.
Billy, he talks about a lot of the guys that he worked with, and the one that he always mentioned is Jack Stratton. That he just has the utmost respect for Jack, and Jack's another one of them guys. I mean, I know him to talk to him. He never remembers me, but he has messaged me a couple times on Instagram, and because we mentioned him when we were doing Bills, and he's just that's a guy you never hear anything like, oh, he was an asshole to me or something like that. No, Bill's dad, yes, you could hear that he was a cantankerous guy, but good and bad. But Jack's just like, every time I've talked to him, he's just been super rad, super guy. How long has Jack been with you?
He's been with me 40, I want to say 43 years. 42.
Wow, that's a lot for somebody that's only like 55 years old.
Jack is 60. I'll tell you how old he's 64. Yeah, he's been with me a long time. Jack's a great guy. I mean, I'm very lucky. I had some really good guys come through here over the years. And, when I tell guys that Jack's been here that long, Jim Vickery, Jim like wires all the cars for us. Jim has been with me longer than Jack. And Jim was a fireman. And so he worked here part-time for 45 years. I mean, he's 75 now. And I keep going, Jim, you sure you can still do something? he just had knee surgery 6 weeks ago, and he's supposed to come back to work next week. And we've got a car sitting here ready for him to wire. I mean, he's wired all these cars for me all these years. And so him and Jack have been here the longest. But we've had other guys here. We've had two other guys that were here 30 years. We had another guy that was here 20 years. I mean, guys are starting to retire. This is what's happening. I mean, in our world, I was able to, give them a home for 30, 40 years. And we always, don't ask me why I figured this out, maybe being around some smart people, but I ran this shop as a real job all these years. I mean, with benefits and retirement. And so all my guys, they ended up with a retirement. If you were here long enough, you did okay. And we had
That's not a common practice that I've come across in the hot rod world.
good. It's not a commentary. Yeah, I never hear that. When I tell guys, they go, "How do you do it?" I go, "Well, I keep guys. That's one good thing." And this is like a family, when my deal has always been Team Brizio, because I didn't do this on my own. And I'm the first one to say it takes a team of people to do this. I mean, everyone. I don't care if you're picking up parts or detailing cars or whatever it is, building the chassis, metal finishing. It's a whole team to do this. And, that's why I think we were successful at it. We had a really good run. I mean, all the guys that have come through here, Billy and Joey Campani, they were all a huge part of this business. And, now we're getting to the point. I mean, I'll be set. I just turned 69 last month, and I'm tired. I'm going on 50 years in a couple of years. And, I had a good run. I had some great customers that we worked for, and without those customers, which most of them became dear friends. Most of them, the people I worked for, we did multiple cars for. Mm-hmm. Edelbrock was the first guy we did probably 10 cars for, but but that was over 20 years, and we've done probably 25 cars for John Mumford, and we're doing a lot for Ross Meyer now. We've done probably 20 cars for Ross, and but there's been customers that we've done multiple.
You ever been out to his collection?
Oh yeah.
I need to make it out there. I did the paint body restoration on the Pete Henderson 32 years ago, and it ended up there when that guy that passed away. It ended up out there. So I need to make a trip and see his collection.
The car's there. I saw it there. Yeah, he's got
pictures. I've had friends that go and they send me pictures and stuff. But yeah,
he's probably got the best hot rod collection out there now. I mean, of historic hot rods in one building. Bruce Meyer's got some great cars, of course, and but I'd say overall, Ross has got some incredible history in his shop.
Yeah, I did that Roadster when Ralph Whitworth.
Yeah, Ralph, great guy.
Yeah, and then I know that Ross bought a lot of the cars when Whitworth decided to sell his stuff, because he was starting to build a museum. So I bet I know at least 50 cars that were Ralph's that went out there. So
yeah, nice. Ralph, I did see part of the museum when it was in
Winnemucca.
In Winnemucca, yeah. We were driving on one of the tours across country. It was after Rod and Custom Mare Cruises. We were just doing a trip across country, and we stopped there. It was incredible. I mean, when I walked in there and saw all the Perone dragsters and all the stuff that we had there, it was just mind blowing. And then
let's talk about, while we're on that vein, let's talk about the historic restoration stuff that you did. Bill talked quite a bit about, they trusted me with this for some reason. And what was the first historic restoration car that you did? Nobody ever thought that those cars would be significant pieces. They were hot rodders, just put together. They were street race, they were drag race, they're, Bonneville, whatever. And to restore these type of cars for collectors and go to Pebble Beach, I mean, still that blows my mind, and I think it's awesome, because I think hot rods are at that level. What was your first historic restoration you did?
Well, first of all, if it wasn't for Bruce Meyer, that would have never happened.
Yeah.
Well, Bruce had been going to Pebble Beach for so long that he must have been putting a bug in their ear for years, and finally he pulled it off. And now it's something that happens, maybe every 2 or 3 years. They've done the customs, they've done the hot rods, and they're going to run out of cars at some point, because most of the great cars have gone there. And but the first car we did was a Jack Laurie 36 three-window coupe. And Billy was here at the shop helping us on that. Billy did a lot of the work on that car. And that we did for a gentleman, Jorge Zaragoza, who we did a lot of cars for. Jorge was a great guy, and we did quite a few cool cars for him. And what happened is, Don Orozco, were you familiar with Don Orozco?
I know the name, yeah.
Out this way, Don had lots of Ferraris, Maseratis, and all these exotic race cars and sports cars, but he also had hot rods, and he would show at Pebble Beach. Well, the McMullen Roadster, Don owned the McMullen Roadster, and I went down to see about buying it for Jorge. So I go down there, and Don says, yes, we have a deal. We're going to sell you the McMullen Roadster. So Jorge asked me to do the deal for him. And so I get there, and I'm sitting in his office, and he goes, look, I've been thinking about this since you told me you were coming down. I'll sell you the McMullen Roadster, but I'm not going to sell it to you unless you buy the Jack Laurie 36 three-window. I'm like, wait a second, Don, all we want is the McMullen Roadster, He goes, no, I won't sell it unless you buy both cars. So I'm like, well, it's not my decision, it's Jorge. So I had to, go out in the parking lot and go, Jorge, I'm here. He won't sell it. And he goes, well, what's the Jack Laurie car? And I go, well, it's a really bitchin' car. It was on the cover of Hot Rod in 49 and blah, blah, blah. And so we go through this whole deal back and forth, and he agrees to sell us the McMullen Roadster and the Calori Coupe. Well, we bring them both back to the shop, and turns out we restore the Calori Coupe before we do the McMullen car, because we had to gather more pieces for the McMullen Roadster. But we had pretty much everything for the 36 three-window. And Pebble Beach was coming, and we decided, hey, we got invited to it, so let's go for it. And so we did that car first, and we won first place. I mean, we'd never been to Pebble Beach. I had never even been there before. I heard of it, of course. And we had taken first place, and my good friend Tom Gloy, who we built hot rods for, he took second place. He had a 40 Mercury, and as it turns out, Ross Myers, who I never met that year at Pebble Beach, he took third place. And I didn't meet Ross until 15 years later, maybe. And but I know
the second place car. What did Ross have for the third place car? What did he have back then?
I want to say he had a 40. I want to say it was a 40 Mercury, but it wasn't. Tom had the 40 Mercury. I don't remember. It must have been a 40 convertible. And
black with white top.
Yeah, they were all black with white tops.
Okay. See, we almost got to do a Pebble Beach car. We restored a Westergaard car for Kurt McCormick years ago.
Yeah.
And we were doing it, and we were dealing with,
Ken Gross?
Yeah, Ken Gross.
Yeah.
And we were sending him pictures, and he loved it. And it's like, when Kurt McCormick does a car, he puts a little bit of his touches on it, unless it's like super famous Barris car or something. He's owned a bunch of them. So we added different moldings on the side, and Ken was okay with that. And I made a bunch of brass moldings almost like on the edge to put Nomad roof bows in the Carson top. And he was fine. And then all of a sudden we sent him a picture of it in paint, and he come unglued. I mean, I'm the middleman. I'm doing what the guy writing the check's doing me.
Absolutely.
But then Ken called me when Kurt sent him a picture. He says, that car was never in a magazine in paint. It was tinted primer. It can't come to Pebble in paint.
Wow.
well, what are we going to do? And Kurt's like, well, I'm not going to pay you to put primer on it, finish it. And then he took the Pisano Brothers Barris 41 Buick that year in its place.
Okay.
So I was close to having a car that I restored at Pebble, but we didn't even go to Pebble. We couldn't afford to because the car wasn't going. Nobody was paying our trip to go to Pebble Beach. But I do remember he had it shipped out, and the car above it leaked transmission fluid on the white Carson top of that 41 Pisano Buick. And that was an original top that had never been restored. And like the insurance is like, we'll pay to replace it. He's like, you can't replace. Like I still think he's sold it since to the guy up in Oregon, and they cleaned it, and it's still got a little discoloration. They're like, well, that kind of adds to the story of the car. But I know we took that Westergaard car to SEMA, and he was so nervous about something happened in shipping, and he had another Barris car that got hurt in shipping. I was like, we're hauling it, we're taking care of it, and so anything that happens, we'll fix it. And so yeah, we took it to SEMA and got stuck in a hallway because they didn't know what a Westergaard car was at the SEMA show. So
that's too bad.
Yeah, but it was in Riders Journal.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
So that was our first experience at Pebble Beach. We ended up going back 3 more times. So yeah, the a la carte never got to go to Pebble Beach, which it should have got to go to Pebble Beach. And I'll tell you why they didn't let it go. And this is crazy. They said it was a pickup truck, and we can't have pickups in Pebble Beach. And the a la carte really should have been there, but it didn't get to go. We took the cookie tea there. We took the McMullen Roadster when it got done. We took that there, and we took the Sam Barris Merc there. So we've gone 5 times. We took 4 cars there, 5 cars there, 4 cars there, 36. No, we never took the a la carte. That's right. We took the a la carte back to the Amber, and we had that shown when it got restored. We took it to the Grand National, and then we took it to Detroit, to the Detroit Autorama. And but yeah, we had
a la carte one back to back, right?
Yeah, 50s, 58 and 59.
And then there was a year, the next year, it wasn't put in competition, right? Because Tom Peters had a car. Is that, or I got the name wrong?
Richard Peters owned the a la carte. It was Chuck Chikorian, and that was Richard Peters' brother-in-law. Okay. And he wanted to show his car, and so Richard didn't put his in competition that year, and he won.
And then when you took it back, in what year restored it?
God, help me.
Within the last 5 or 6 years ago.
No, it was like it was probably in the 90s we took it back. When it was all restored, it was sometime in the 90s.
Bill was working there.
But we had it there last year. We had it there last year just for the road.
Okay.
For the anniversary.
But it almost could have won a 3rd time.
It might have. It probably would have in those days. It was be pretty hard to beat that car.
Yeah.
As it was a real show car.
Yeah.
And that was a fun project. And yeah, we've had some fun projects. We have restored the original Edelbrock Roadster. We never took that to Pebble Beach. That never went. What else did we restore? Those are probably the main cars we restored for. And the cookie car, that was a fun one to do. That's for sure. That was great. And enjoyed taking that there. Yeah, I don't know. What else did we do? We did.
So through the years, did you ever get into a lot of builders? I know I did for a lot of times, and Rick Dorr did. Shaporis did. Did you ever build any new cars for the SEMA show for Ford or Chevy?
Did a lot. Yeah, we did. We did some projects when Angelo was with Ford Racing. We did Expedition, and we did a Ford pickup. As far as cars, and we did a T-Bird. One of the new T-Birds came out when.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
They gave us 3 for $1. They gave Chip a T-Bird. They gave me one, and they gave Brad Fanshaw from Blunt's Feet. We each got a T-Bird, and we did whatever we wanted to him. Chip, of course, took the top off his and changed the windshield and did all that. And mine, I liked my car. I thought we did a great job. We did a lot of aluminum work on changed the bumpers and made aluminum chrome bumpers for it, and put skirts down, rockers down below the doors, and did a lot of fun stuff to it. It was, those were fun years doing those projects.
I miss that. We did those 12 different years. We did those dollar programs where we got a new car. We did only 2 for Ford. We did a Escape. We never got like the T-Birds, we did a Ford Escape, and then we did I don't know, 8 years ago, we did a Transit Connect minivan. They did it all because we sponsor BMX kids, so all BMX themed. That it was in the Yakima Bike Rack booth, and then we did a Toyota one year, and then we did eight Chevys through the years. Like before they killed that program, I still have my crew cab 4-wheel drive Duramax. It was my last GM vehicle, and it's like, cool. Man, as expensive as cars are now, it's like, man, I miss those dollar car eras, man. She could use a new, for all those years, she had a really cool, wasn't a hot rod, but lower stereo, ground effects, wheels, and some body mods and custom. Cool. Yeah, it was a new concept custom, as the KKOA would call them. And I miss that era of SEMA. Now Chevy and Ford don't even come back to SEMA anymore.
Well, that was a great era for all the hot rod guys. I mean, that was fun for them, and it was good for Ford and Chevy and all those companies that were doing that. The last truck I was going to do for them, I actually decided not to do it, and I didn't take it. They had it all set up, and I called them back and said, by then the commitment was, taking it here, taking it there, magazine covers, blah, 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 insurance. And it got to the point I said, I tell you what, I'm not going to take your truck, but I'm going to go buy a brand new truck for myself. Because I thought about it. I go, by the time I spend all this money doing this truck, then I had the commitment of taking it to all the events. It was just too much. I just said, I'll go buy a new Ford truck and I'll use it for my shop truck instead. And then I felt like I didn't, I didn't go ahead and do the project, but I at least supported Ford Motor Company. They were good to me. And I
still got a Ford on my wall that I wish I would have done. I was always doing, hot rod themed. And there was a buddy at the shop there. And he goes, what is that? I go, that's one we didn't get to build for Ford. And we had a Lincoln whatever that I wanted. It was all Bonneville themed. And I didn't get that one. But the Ford truck, I did it Ford Thunderbolt style with the Thunderbolt scoop, the Thunderbolt moldings down the side, lowered with kidney beans. And it was a speed shop truck. So it had on a rack in the back, it had a fully detailed show polished flathead, like, it's delivering race motors to hot rod shops. And the one guy at Ford that was a hot rod guy, he loved it. And everybody else was like, nope, we're over that vintage themed crap. So that's one I really wish we could have done.
Yeah.
Cool. So what else?
What do you got?
So
I have a million questions. I know I can't talk to him, but maybe someday he'll be on a part 2.
During the time frame, and obviously you guys are still in business and still working, but what was the hate, your turn or your time frame? What was what you would consider the heydays of hot rodding?
I had a good role. It just for us from 2000 till now, it's been full throttle. But honestly, I don't know if you've heard the rumor, but I'm slowing down. I want to retire. I see what's going on for me. I'm getting tired for one. I have my guys that have been with me for years. They're all getting tired. It's not that we don't love doing what we're doing, because we're blessed with the greatest customers. I mean, I've been so lucky to have the people that we've worked for. I mean, I worked really hard for them, and they've treated me so great. I mean, I couldn't, I'm the luckiest guy out there doing this stuff. And
we talk about that often on this podcast, that the hot rod business is a little bit different than a lot of businesses. It's not like you're a custom home builder, because you do these hot rods and you're going to spend a lot of, a home builder would, you're going to spend a lot of time on the phone, the designs and looking at architect drawings and all of that. But most of these hot rod customers, you might do a road trip across country. You might, you might go to the SEMA show. You're going to hang out at the Roadster show. You're going to go to dinner. And we want to work for cool people. Like when we have a person that wants to have a car built, we kind of hang out with them. We go to dinner. And then we think if we have a couple red flags pop up, I know I ain't getting rich out of this. Maybe I should just bite my tongue and just work. But I don't want to work for assholes, because you want to enjoyable on both sides of the fence.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I've been pretty fortunate because most of the people I've worked for, I mean, there's only been a couple people I've probably ever said, I'm not your guy, but I've done it before I got into their project. And it's generally the guy that comes in and says, I doesn't matter how much it costs, I can afford it, blah, 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 blah. And those are always the guys I'd go, I don't know about this guy. Yeah. And there's been a couple guys I've just said, I'm just not your guy. And they, what do you mean? I just don't think I'm the right fit here. I said, we're going to be working on this for you for a couple of years, and I want to enjoy it. I want you to enjoy it. I want to enjoy it. And I mean, when guys have said to me, hey, what happens? Have you ever been in lawsuits, and have you been in this and that and gotten fights with customers? I go, no, never been in a lawsuit, never sued anybody. Nobody sued me. It's just, you just figure it out and you get along. And one of the things that, when we were doing so much, we'd have, customers, as you will know, you go to the Roadster show and you go, God, how am I going to have dinner with this guy and that guy and this guy and that guy? Don't ask me how I figured this out over the years. It was kind of by accident. I just introduced all my customers to each other. And pretty soon they all became friends. It got to the point that we'd go to the Roadster show and it was like, oh, you want to come to dinner with us? But yeah, I'll go to dinner with you guys.
Have they ever all went to dinner and forget to invite you?
No. But I got to tell you, it took a lot of pressure off me, because when you got 5 guys going to the Roadster show or whatever, and you got all these people that, supported you and you want to spend time with them and they're special and they want to be treated special, and they should be. Yep. It's a lot easier when they're all friends and everybody knows each other, instead of going, hey, I got to go spend some time over here and some time over here. It just, a lot of that came from these traveling events that we did, going different places where we'd build hot rods for people and they'd all get to know each other. And to this day, I mean, I have more people that come to me and say, hey, I wouldn't have all these friends without you introducing me to them. And honestly, that's one of my, and I will say this, and I really mean it, it's one of my greatest gifts, I guess I could say, for me, is being able to meet these people and introducing them to other people that have become lifelong friends.
So I know the answer for us. We don't hardly have any friends that aren't either hot rod people or bicycle people. Do you have any friends that like, oh, we're going to Saturday night dinner, that aren't associated to cars at any bit away?
Not really. I mean, I still have some of my really good high school friends. I had a great class in high school, and we still get together. We just did, a month or so ago. About
my best friend I grew up high school with, he still lives in Illinois, we live in Tennessee, but he was also a hot rod buddy early on and a bicycle buddy. And so we have that as a common clear back then. So he doesn't have hot rods now because his daughter makes him go to softball 9 days a week. So
well, maybe that's a good thing.
Yeah.
When Bobby Alloway's daughter was doing softball, he was spending a lot of time doing softball.
Do you know my best Bobby Alloway and his daughter story?
No.
So 2 or 3 years ago, on setup day at the Triple Crown of Rodding, here in Nashville, it's close to our shop. On setup day, I'm one of the MCs. We interview people, and I see a 57 that I heard was Chip Foosa's 57 Chevy. It's out in the big parking lot going, like, what the hell's going on out there? Well, it finally comes up. It's Anna, Bobby's daughter,
Anna?
driving Chip Foose's car, and Chip Foose is teaching her to drive a stick shift because her and Bobby are too close of a person, like the same personality. The Cindy tells a story. It's like, oh, they get like they're going to kill each other. So Bobby, Mr. Hot Rod guy, mentor to many people, couldn't even teach his own daughter to drive a stick shift. So I make sure everybody knows that when I'm on the microphone. But Chip added that to his resume that he's a driver instructor too. But the thing was, so then later in the weekend, Anna gets in Bobby's 57 Bel Air that's got a stick in it. Because he always said, Anna, I'll give you this car if you can learn to drive a stick shift. So she pulled it out of the thing and pulled up to him. He's like, well, I guess I just lost my 57. But yeah, that's a pretty good thing to say Chip Foose taught you how to drive a stick shift too. Your dad, Bobby Alloway, couldn't.
I was there that year, and I remember him telling me that he did that. Yeah.
It was awesome. It was one of my best Bobby and Chip stories. Chip says it's one of my proudest accomplishments because Bobby couldn't do it.
Right on.
So through the years, you talked about Joe was working for you and you did some chassis. You never had really a full paint shop. You always kind of subbed out the paint work and the upholstery, right?
Yeah, Sid Shavers did 95% of every car we ever did.
We put Sid in the Starbird National Rod and Custom Car Hall of Fame. This year, we started a upholstery category. They added me on the board and Carrie because we're the youngest on the board, so we do all the work. So the board decided to finally add an upholstery division, and rightfully so, Sid Shavers was the very first upholstery inductee.
Yeah, and I'm sorry I wasn't there that weekend. When Sid told me that it was happening, it was the same weekend as the Good Guys Pleasanton.
That's one thing we didn't look on the schedule of a conflicting date. It's so hard, especially back east, of trying to find events that aren't happening. So we're trying to find a perfect date when that's going to happen, and it's always going to be up there in Lincoln now.
Well, I want to come back to that again. I was in the first class of that with Boyd and Ed Roth, and who else was with us? I don't know. There's like 5 or 6 of us.
I have a note in my phone. I could read it off on what the order of everybody that got.
So I went back because Daryl was such a great guy, or is such a great guy, and I miss seeing him. And I knew Daryl for years, and I just haven't made it back there yet, and I want to. And when Sid told me, I said, Sid, I want to be there for you, but I made commitments with customers for Pleasanton, and I didn't know that it was that weekend. So, when you guys get it figured out, hopefully I can, know soon enough that I'd love to go back again. And of course, the guys at Speedway, Clay and his brothers, are wonderful guys. We went back there. We drove hot rods back there this last summer, and they treated us
incredible. Yeah,
they treated us so good back there, and they're doing such a great job. And we have some cars that will end up at the Speedway Museum for sure. And
I was waiting to talk to Tim, the curator, at when we were starting to plan the dates during the Roadster show last year, and I kept having to wait. I'm not going to say their names till it's public when the cars that are going there. A couple big people that we have mentioned here that are donating cars that will live there in the museum, and I couldn't be I'm a huge history nerd for everything, and the cars that will end up. I mean, there's a lot of amazing cars there already, but pretty rad stuff that some of those people are donating some amazing cars to that museum.
It's they do such a wonderful job, better than anybody at what they're doing.
Yes.
And, I'm looking at all my stuff of what am I going to do, some of my cars. And I honestly, I feel like, I wish we had a place in California like Speedway Motors, because kind of hard for us California guys to go, hey, I want to take my history to Lincoln, Nebraska, but nobody else will show it off like they do. And
one thing about their stuff, if you donate or they end up with stuff, they never sell anything and they rotate stuff. We had a customer, we did a car for Paul Hansen, and we did a custom, and he donated it to the Peterson.
Cool.
Well, in the contract was if they ever decide to sell it, the family would like first chance back someday. They wanted it, and it rotated through the Bruce Meyer gallery a few times. And well, when the museum changed hands and they did all that remodel, they sold like 80 cars. It was one that got sold and we never got noticed. And they family reached out and says, well, when it changed hands, all the contracts were null and void. We didn't have to contact anybody.
Oh, wow.
So, I don't know if they really would have bought it back, but it would have been nice. Now that car lives in the guy's living room in New Jersey. It's in his living room. So that's pretty cool.
Pretty cool.
Yeah. So you farm. Why didn't you ever add your own paint shop in there? Just California
honestly,
rules and stuff like that, or just get it out of here for a while. And you got obviously great. Some of the best painters in the country are local to you out there.
well, I was fortunate enough to have good painters like my brother-in-law, Daryl Hollenbeck. And, if we would have had to put a paint shop in, when we were averaging 10 to 12 cars a year, it takes on the average 3 months to do a car. I mean, the paint guys want 3 months.
Mm-hmm.
I would have had to have 10, 15 employees just doing body and paint. And I knew that.
Right.
If we were going to keep this up, and I just didn't, I didn't have a place to do it for one. I didn't want to deal with it. I would have had to hire somebody to just run the whole thing. And I was lucky and fortunate enough to have guys that could paint like Daryl and, gave him a career for one.
Yeah.
And we had great paint jobs coming from the guys we used. And, the body and paint, as you well know, is the first thing you look at these cars. So when people come, oh, Roy, that car's beautiful. And, they're not looking underneath it. They're not in the engine compartment or laying on their back looking at it. It's the body and paint's the first thing you see. So, our cars are only as good as the body and paint, I mean,
So
yes.
my question is, I don't know if Daryl and Terry will listen to this. They probably will listen to this one. And I want to get both of them on the podcast. They both said they do it. I want to do them separate because they've got both such stories themselves. Did Daryl paint any cars for you before he was married to your sister?
No. I didn't actually know Daryl then. And when I first saw him, I went, Dad, who is this guy that Terry's going to marry?
But back then he was working for with what's his name, Acme, when they were doing all them customs, right?
Yep.
Back then, probably. Yeah.
I'd seen a couple cars that he'd done once I got to know who he was. Customs. He was doing a lot of customs.
Mm-hmm.
And, we were at the Roadster show and I saw a couple of cars he did and they were fantastic,
Yeah. I always loved his color. The first time I ever talked to him, I called him up because in the custom magazines, I'm a custom guy at heart. It was like, oh, paint and color by Daryl Hollenbeck. So I called him one time. I forget what the car was. And I was like, dude, can I hire you to make a custom color for us? And we buy from you and you ship it, or we pay you for the formula. And he's like, dude, I have hard enough time coming up with my own colors. I can't come up with yeah. But he thought it was cool that I called him from that time, Illinois, to ask for a custom color. But I've always held Daryl as the ultimate. Then getting to know Daryl, he's got a really screwed up sense of humor like I do, so we get along. So
you're both rare.
Yeah.
They must have
Daryl,
yeah, because he's an old BMXer too, so we get along that way also.
Right. That's right, he is. I forgot. Well, he's certainly very talented. He's done a lot for us, that's for sure. Daryl's, he does an amazing job. He's got a couple of cars there he's doing for us right now. And I always go to Daryl, he's my brother-in-law. You got to take care of my sister. I go, all right, what do you want to do? I give him the list of cars. And of course he wants to do every car that's going to go to Pebble Beach or, something real special.
Yeah, rightfully so, and deservingly so.
Yeah. And he's done them all. It's like, you've got to do every one that we got left. Whenever one comes up, I always say, do you want to do this? And he goes, yeah, I want to do that. So yeah, he's got plenty to do. And we're talking about, my future of how many cars are we going to, continue doing until we're done. And, but we're getting close. We've got plenty to do. But I'm winding it down. I'm really winding it down.
You get ready to retire, you can send your scraps out east. So. How many 32 Roadsters do you think you've built in your career? There's got to be a count someplace, doesn't there?
I wish that I was better at doing that. Even now I'll go on our website and thank God Jim Vickery is the one who did our website. One day he goes, we need to do something. I mean, if you wanted to buy a t-shirt, I don't think you can buy one on our website. That's how bad we are about self-promotion. But if you want to see how a chassis is built or how we built, restored a car or whatever, there's plenty of pictures. We have more people that I'll travel somewhere and somebody will walk up to me and go, hey, I just want to tell you, man, your website, I go on it all the time and get ideas or whatever. Thank you for, posting all that stuff. And I go, I don't do any of it. I don't even barely know how to get on a computer. And
learned that tonight trying to set up the Zoom.
When you said we're going to do this, I'm like, all right, let me get the smartest kid in the shop. Danny, help me. Where was I going with that? God dang it. What were we talking about?
About the
website and promoting. Yeah.
Well, whatever. We were talking about Daryl, I think, or somebody.
Yeah, we were talking about farming out the paintwork, but yeah.
Well, whatever. It just the paintwork would have been just too much for us to do. Oh, you asked me how many 32 Fords we built.
Yeah, there you go.
See, I forget where we're at too. Yeah.
Yeah,
I can like paint fumes though.
And you're much younger than me, so you gotta keep your brain. I'll go on the website once in a while just looking up a car, or somebody will go, hey, can you tell me about this car? And I'm amazed even today when I look how many cars are there, and I just like kind of scroll through them. And I want to say there's 175 to 200 cars on our website. And, I get asked all the time, how many cars did you guys build? And I used to say 300, but I said that for years. It's probably closer to 400 now.
Yeah, as I was Googling stuff for your intro tonight, that came up in more recent posts over 400, and I would not disagree with that at all. Like, how many cars you got on the shop floor right now?
There's always 25 out there, at least 25. Yeah.
You still have
that's 10, all we'll fit.
You're in 10,000 square feet, or is that?
Well, I got 10,000 feet here. I got another 2,000 where we have the showroom and all that. And then I've got next door another between storage of cars that are overrun and my cars. There's another 4,000 feet over there. So we, and we're still like looking for where can I park a car?
Yeah. So your personal cars, what's your favorite car that you have? Maybe one that you drove the most, or what's your favorite car?
Well, I've kept most of my roadsters, from 1988. And
last time I was there, you had was that the B&M car that was on the showroom?
I have the B&M car. I haven't driven that much. I took it to my dad's last picnic he did, and I think somebody told me the other day that was like 10 years ago. I don't drive that car much, and I really do want to drive it. I want to get it back out on the road. I mean, it'll start up, I'm sure, if I put fuel and a battery in it. But I drive that my full fendered red 32 Roadster. We built that for Rodden Custom it was my car, but we did a project with them for the 50th anniversary of Rodden Custom, which was 1993, or no, 2003. Let's see, it was built in 2003. I'm sorry, because Rodden Custom was 53. 2003. I still have that car. I drive that one a lot. That's got 55,000 miles on it.
So you, as a hot rod guy at your level, what's your daily driver that you drive to the shop? You probably drive a hot rod every once in a while, but don't tell me it's like a Tesla.
Oh God, no.
You've done some electric stuff though. At least one you did for Neil Young, right?
Yeah. Don't tell anybody. No. Well, that came because we had restored a '54 Buick for Neil, and I met him by accident. He kind of walked in the shop one day, and I went, "Shit, it's Neil Young." And I said, "Can I help you?" And he's like, "Wow, what is this place?" I go, "We work on cars." And told him what we did. And so he had a Cadillac. He had a '57 Barrett's that broke down about 2 blocks from here. And he said, well, I was recording down the street and somebody said that there was a shop down the street. And so I was wondering if you could store my car for a night. And that's kind of how we met him. And I mean, that's really how we met him. And I said, yeah, no problem. So he came back, I don't know, the next day or the day after and said, hey, I'm sorry, I haven't got my car out of here yet. And yeah, we ended up helping him work on his car. The brakes were a problem. And then he asked me if we'd restored this Buick. And I went and looked at it, and I probably would have said no if it wasn't him, but I was, kind of like, hey, this is Neil. So we did that car for him, restored that. And then when he came up with the Link Bolt project, the electric car, that wasn't my project. We inherited that by accident. He called me and said, can you help me with it? And, of course I said, yeah. And then it turned into a huge project. And anyhow, we did it and it was fun, sort of. No, it was fun. And
That's your only electric car you've ever done?
yeah, we're not going to do electric cars.
Yeah.
So you didn't let him tell you his daily
Yeah,
driver
but what
was.
is your daily driver?
My pickup truck.
Okay.
I drive a Dodge pickup. I should be driving a Ford, but I'm driving a Dodge pickup. I drive my pickup almost every day, but
Is it at least lowered with wheels?
no, it's white without any
He's
names
got
on
time
it.
to work on his own daily driver. What are you talking
It's like
about?
when she got rid of, she used to drive those SEMA cars all the time. And the transit van, we did put 100,000 miles on that thing. She's like, I want another. She's always been kind of a caddy girl. We can't afford it. We built hot rods. We can't afford a new caddy. We've always bought used caddies. She goes, I want a black caddy. I want the windows tinted. I want stock wheels on it. I don't want you lowering it. I don't want ground effects. I don't even want a shop sticker. She goes, I'm tired of talking to people at every gas station that I stop to. Says, I want to be left alone. It's just
No personalized plates. No
yeah,
nothing.
just tinted windows. That's it. Just a black caddy. So
Well, that's what I have. Just a standard white truck. It's not lowered. It's doesn't have a decal on it. I've never had a vehicle with my name except a hot rod with my name on it. Just as a daily driver, I just drove.
I
Whatever.
drive that last Chevy SEMA build. It was on the cover of a diesel magazine. It's lifted in stripes and 55 Chevy emblems on it. And I'm doing an OBS truck for myself with stupid paint. That was my driver till I tore it apart. And I'm chopping the top because I've always wanted a chop daily driver for my hot rod shop. But the town we live just south of Nashville, nobody even knows barely what a hot rod is down here. So people leave me alone anyway. But
That's good.
yeah,
That's how you can be left alone if you don't have anything. I mean, driving the hot rods, of course, everywhere you go, somebody's going to talk to you.
mm-hmm.
And but that's okay. That's okay. People love the hot rods. Wave to you.
What's your funnest road trip that you and your buddies or whoever had ever done? Because you've done a lot of them. So what's your best, the
I
coolest?
have to
Like,
say
when
that
we went to Deuce Days or we went back to Indy or back east anywhere, what was your most memorable trip?
I'd say the one I did with my dad when he did the Good Guys Rodfather tour, because that'll never happen again. It was 100 cars. Uh, the people that went will never drive a hot rod across country. The ones that are still alive. I mean, honestly, there's probably 10 or more people that went on that trip with us, more than that, 15 that are gone. And so they're, my dad's buddies, his hot rods, which his buddies were my buddies. That was a pretty special trip to do that. And luckily, I went to Terry when we were on there. I said, hey, I want you to do me a favor. Every time we go somewhere where it's Gary Metters, Mark was with him. I said, I want to take a picture with Dad and me and Gary and Mark and Steve Mole, him and his son, with Dad and I, and we went to Pinky's and we took pictures with them and we went to Troy Trepania's and Jack was still alive. And so I look at those photos now and go, these guys are all gone, because I knew I was with my dad and we were probably not going to do this trip again. And to have, Jack and Troy somewhere, we went to Troy's shop to see him and all these people that were on that trip, and that was a really fun trip. We did a lot on that. We went to a lot of places, visited a lot of people. That was a good trip. I'd say that was.
What year was that? Do you remember? Do you remember what year that was?
2000 something, I think. Let's see, it had to be about 15 years ago.
Okay.
I don't know. I'm not good at dates.
I was going to guess 10 or 12 or something. Where
But
did you guys end up? Was it Good Guys Indy you went to?
no, we went to, did we go to Indy? Yeah, we went to Indy. It was Indy. Good guy.
So it's probably been 15 years since they've done it. It's probably been 10 years
It
till
was
they
probably
did.
the last time they did that. You
Well,
know,
it's been longer than that because they weren't doing the drag strip when we moved down here.
Oh no, they weren't. They were at the fairgrounds for 2 to 3 years. Yeah.
So probably 15 years.
Yeah.
it's been about 15 years. I'd have to think. I mean, I don't know how many times I did, like I said, 10 NSRA events and 10 of those AmeriCruises. The AmeriCruises, we drove to all those.
See, my mind still works. It's like somebody says 1980s. Oh, that's 20 years ago. No, it's a lot longer than 20 years ago.
Believe me, that's how my mind works. When I think about that, no, it was 30 years ago. I started, doing the math. Boy, I thought it was like 10 years ago. No, it was 20 years ago, or it was 30.
Yeah.
Because like I talk like weekly to one of my best hot rod brothers is Zane Cullen. Don't hold that against me.
No.
I've been out and helped Zane a lot. I think first time I came to your place, I was with Zane. We drove down, like I was out there helping him, and you had your shop party, and we drove down. And remember, everybody was like, "What are you doing here?" I was like, "I don't know." Zane drugged me out here. He drugged me out west. Yeah, he drugged me out west. And
From west.
I lost it. There was another point. What was I saying? See, I lost my train of thought there too. Zane threw me off.
And you're not that old.
Oh, that's what it was. Zane tells me all the time, because we're like close to the same age, that he goes, "Bro," and I'm not a sports guy, but I understand when he tells me that I'm in my third quarter.
Well, that means I'm in my fourth quarter, I think. I don't know. Who knows?
There's overtime and triple overtime and all of that. So,
well, when you look at that tape measure thing, that's scary.
Yeah.
Don't take the tape measure out and go like, "Whoa."
Yeah.
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 No. So I have 2 questions for you. The first one is, and the second one's going to be harder for you, I think, because you've been.
I think I know his first.
I think I know
first
it
answer.
Too. The first one is, what is your favorite show that you love to go to? And then the second part of that is, what is one show that you've never been to that you would love to attend?
Well, I will tell you, the LA Roadster show was always my favorite show to go to, because
that's Father's Day, right?
Father's Day, LA Roadster show.
I've never been out to that. Zane tries to bring me out every year, and I haven't made it out there yet. But everybody says it's not what it used to be, but nothing is.
It's not what it used to be. I will say that. But the LA Roadster guys are great guys. I started going there with my dad. The first time we went was 1966. And I'm not going to say I went every year since 66, but I've gone to the last probably 35, 40 years I've gone. And we drive every year, a bunch of us getting our hot rods and drive down there. The swap meet's great. It's not what it used to be, but not every event is what it used to be. It's
right,
It is what it is. People are getting older. But the LA
one of my thing is why things aren't like they used to be, is because she works for a company that run 5 events for Holly, like huge events. These LS events are huge. Power Tour is big. We don't have Super Chevy and stuff, but back in the 80s, there was NSRA, KKOA was bigger than it was. Good Guys was starting mid 80s. You didn't have all these events. So now your core people of hot rod people are sprinkled almost everywhere. Like us missing that Pleasanton was the weekend for the Hall of Fame deal. There's so many events happening on top of people are getting older.
Yep. No, that's true. And, in Pleasanton, for me, it's not what it used to be. Back in the day, there was 3,500 hot rods. And when 3,500 hot rods, they were 30s, 40s, pre-48 is what was. Right. But it's changing, things change. Cars, there's later model cars there now. It's your friends that you hung out with all those years, they've all gotten older. They don't quite go there anymore. And it's just, things have changed. The LA Roadster show, they would get on the average 700 roadsters. And it's just changed now. It's 300 maybe now, but it's
still a lot of roadsters. That's still a lot of roadsters.
And like I said, those guys are great guys. And, all the years that I would have a display there, they treated me so good that I will go there until they finally say, we're not doing it anymore. And so part of it is, out of respect to them. But I had a lot of fun going there over the years. And that's just one thing that I always go, LA Roadster Show. I don't want to miss that. Father's Day weekend.
I was going to guess the Roadster Show was his favorite. That's what I was going to guess.
The Roadster Show?
Yeah, the Grand National.
Oh, yeah,
the Grand
that's what
National.
I thought.
That's what I was going to guess.
Yeah, well, hey, that's hard. Now you just put me in a bad position because
But the Roadster Show is
Roadster Show.
But going as a person,
Rod Run. That's a car show.
The Roadster, the Father's Day is probably a little more chill. You're not putting your cars up in the air and toothpick clean or Q-tip cleaning them, white gloving, and putting mirrors underneath of it. So the outdoor one sounds like people have no idea. We've showed enough indoor stuff, and she pinched a nerve handling carpet rolls, and it's a lot of work to put a car in a 20 by 20 and display it. And people have no idea how much work that is.
The years that come off your life every time you put a car up.
Yeah. We probably got more stuff jacking cars up at indoor shows that we've caused damage than actually driving them 1,000 miles.
I think a trailer is harder on a hot rod than driving it on the road. Yeah. No, we've been doing those shows for so long now, and luckily, most of my guys we work for, they're not, unless we're putting a car in amber, America's Most Beautiful Roadster. We put the cars in because they're brand new. We park them in our booth, and most guys that we work for are like, hey, whatever, we don't need to jack them up and put mirrors underneath them. And I'm like, good, because I really don't want to do that. To me, the cars always look the best when they're just sitting there.
Your booth is like, I don't know if it's a seniority thing, is the mid-center towards the awards end of the main building at the Roadster Show. If the people listening have never been to the Roadster Show, and you always have, what do you have? 8 cars in your booth? 6 cars?
We always put 6 cars in. Okay. 6 cars.
One of my favorite ones recently was, because that's the era I grew up, you guys did a restoration. I think Daryl painted it. I think it was a yellow 32 3-window with all the billet stuff on it.
Oh, that was one of Boyd's cars, yeah.
Yeah, that's the era that I started paying attention to street rods more and walking through all the amber display, all the anodized billet stuff. I want to build. I have my OBS. I got some Fat Jack Robinson valve covers anodized that I'm putting on it. So I'm putting some 90s stuff on my OBS truck because that's what I grew up. That was the era that I started paying attention to stuff more. So.
It was a great era. There were look how many builders there was back there. I mean, a lot of LA guys were Jack and Pete and Jakes and California Street Rods and Boyd, and all these guys were building hot rods in LA at that point. And now it's not quite the same, and it is what it is. I mean, I just look at it, and I all the people I made, friends I made over the years, like Bobby and Chip and Troy, and all these guys are my buddies, and I don't get to see them enough. And honestly, I look at it and I go, like, someday when I retire, I just hope I can go hang out with these guys and go visit them. I mean, it's like Bobby's show. I promised Bobby I would go to that first show. I said, I'm coming. And then it was like, are you coming this year? I go, Bobby, I can't do it all, And so I didn't go for the last 2 years, but I'm going to come back to Bobby's. I'm hoping that we can do it this next summer. I want to drive back, put a group of guys back and together, and we drive our hot rods there. So we're going to try to
drive, but you never need anything as you get into town. My shop is 50 minutes away from that venue.
Oh, really? Cool. Well, we want to go back and support Bobby because obviously he's a dear friend, and I love the fact that Chip has been very supportive of Bobby and all you guys that come there, and when Bobby first did that deal, he was like, I'm going to try to pull this off and blah blah blah, and it's going to be great, and he invited all his friends to come, and they all came, and the night I went back there, that Thursday night party, I thought that was fantastic because it reminded me of the old Street Rod Nationals when all the builders and manufacturers, we all would get together and have a party, before the show started. And you got to.
This year they did it, and they had it at a different venue. They didn't know their crowd, but there was a lot of people that did it. I was scared somebody was going to break a hip They had a mechanical bull for people to get on during the kickoff
Oh,
party. There was probably 35 people that rode it, mostly young, lot younger than me. But yeah, I'm like,
wow.
somebody's gonna break a hip out here.
You did that at the party? At
Yeah, you were
Bob's
supposed to
party?
give like $5 for the Gary Sinise Foundation to raise
Oh,
money
yeah.
to do it, and then they had food and everything. Really cool event center, set up like a farm, just
Right across.
5 blocks from the host hotel. So yeah, it was
Oh, cool.
really cool. So yeah, they do stuff. I do a lot of events and announcing on microphone on the weekend, and that event. Just they do stuff at that they couldn't pull off anywhere else. They still run it like you said, like an old rod run. You hanging out with your buddies, and of course everybody respects Bobby Alloway, so you show up
Oh,
with
yeah.
him and Gary Case. I mean, the
Yeah,
stuff that they've
Gary's
done
a good
in the
guy.
industry. And Bobby's always been one of my mentors. If I had a question about business, I could call him and ask him about stuff. And I've always looked up to you and him as well. So
Yeah,
yeah.
no, Bobby's a good guy, and the perfect marriage for Bobby and Gary. Gary's got so
Yeah.
much experience with putting those events on over the years with Hot Rod and
Yeah.
all the stuff that he did. It was the perfect deal for the two of them to get together. And the shows are fantastic. I mean, the ones I haven't gone to, I've seen, videos and photos, and they're doing such a great job.
And they parked in the
Bobby's
jet.
part,
If you want to be eligible for the judging, you have to pull out on the pit lane, same way as they did it the first year you came. There was over 400 cars that pulled out there, and some people got angry because they didn't win anything. They only give 30 awards. So there was a lot of badass cars that didn't get something because there's only 30 awards. It's not, oh, and best chrome lug nut award goes to somebody, and so it means a lot if you get something at that event.
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, is there any show that you have not been able to go to that is on your bucket list?
I don't know. I mean, I've got to see some pretty cool stuff in my lifetime. I mean, there's one thing. I don't know if you've ever heard of the Goodwood Festival of
Yeah,
Speed.
that comes up a lot.
Yep.
That's
popular.
something that if you're a car enthusiast, you want to go see that someday. It's in England, and that's pretty special to see.
You've been to that?
Yeah, I've been a couple times now, and
Have you ever done the Moon Eyes Japan show?
no, and I do want to do that. I told Chico a couple times that Chico's a great guy, and we always try to say hi whenever we're in the same room. And I just said someday I want to make it to that. I hopefully in the next couple of years I get there. This last year we did so much traveling. I mean, car stuff, just a lot of car stuff. And next year I'm like, I want to just calm down a little bit and not do as much. I mean, I was on the go all the time, just going to events and stuff. But that's kind of what I've been doing forever. But a lot this last year, and I just want to do a little less next year. Between the Roadster Club and going to these different car events, you could stay busy, as you well know. There's something going on every weekend.
Yep.
Is there any car that you have not built for yourself personally? You got 32 for yourself. You got a 55. Is there something like, oh, I've always wanted a Merc, or I want a badass pickup truck, or is there anything that there might be one on your bucket list, or that, oh, if a customer walks through the door and say, tell me what you've always wanted to build and let's build it. Is there something still on your bucket list?
I got to honestly say it's a great question, but I think we've done it. I mean, for me, I think I've fulfilled everything I've ever wanted to build. And most of those came from customers that came to me and said, hey, is there something you'd want to do different? And we did a couple cars. I don't know if you remember that little channeled blue 32 Roadster we did for Tom Gloy. It was 3 inches pinched in the cowl and the shell. We took it to Amber. We didn't win. It was the
That's
year.
the one that had the wheel well body lines that were shaved off, right? Yeah.
One Goodyear. I'm sorry. One Good Guys Street Rod of the Year, I think it was. He drove it to Indy, had an injected small block Ford in it. And that was something I wanted to build, a car like that. And he came to me and said, what would you want to build in a 32? I go, I haven't seen a great channeled roadster that out there that I would say it was done right. And I said, I'd want to do a channeled roadster. And he goes, all right, I want you to build me something that like that. And he was so great to do it for. And Tom's one of my dearest friends. We built him a couple hot rods and we became really good friends. And he just said, you know, do what you want to do. I'll pick the colors. And we got to do that car. And if I was going to build a car for myself, it would have probably been that car. So I got to do it, you know. I think
That's awesome that you got the customers that come in. It was like I always say on this, and all the time, that if you pick the builder, trust the builder, because there's a reason that the builder wants to use this motor or this bracket kit or this exhaust or, you know, wiring harness, because they've been there and they know and they're comfortable with not only that product or the people at that company that they're buying stuff for. So that's what I always say, trust the builder. To me, all the builders, if you just let them loose, you've got a style. Shaporis had a style. Troy, Bobby, everybody's got, you know, Bobby, it's got to be black, you know. You know, so
yeah, exactly. You can have anything you want as long as it's black with flames or black. Just all black or black with flames. But otherwise I'll give you anything you want.
Yeah.
No, I've actually always tried to get out of my customers when they've come to me to say, you know, here's what they want. I want them to have what they want. Like, I want this color. And if it's really dumb, I guess I'd say, well, how about let me make a couple suggestions? And sometimes they say, no, this is what I want. But I'll generally give them what they want. And I you know, may have to cheat a little here and there to make it look even better or whatever. But I want them to have what they want. This way, when they're done, they're not going, you know, you talked me into red and I want it black. Or you want it, you know, I want it yellow and you want it orange. I don't want to deal with that. If they get done and they go, God, I told you I wanted it yellow and I shouldn't have done yellow, I should have done orange. Okay, well, that's your decision. So
we had a guy a couple of years ago was talking to us about building a 32 that I've got on paper. I've always wanted to build and go to Pomona with it. And I go, and he's been there with another builder and didn't win, got mad, said he'd never go back. And he hasn't been back in over 15 years. But he's like, oh, maybe I'll do another one. And I go, but we're going to build the car that we want. And if we don't win, we still like our car, instead of building a car that you think the judges want. Mm-hmm. And if you don't win, then you've got a judge's car, instead of, like you say, oh, maybe black doesn't show as well under the lights, so I don't want a black car. Let's do a yellow car so it looks bright. You know, that's what you still got to be happy with the car at the end, no matter what you win. I've seen a lot of stuff for this industry. I say I've seen behind the velvet curtain or the velvet ropes. And at the end of the day, just be happy with your hot rod in the process of building it and have some fun with it. Your fun might be, I'm going to trailer this everywhere and do all these shows. That might be what they want to do. Or it might be, hey, I want red oxide primer. We're going to drive the hell out of it. But just do the car that you want.
Well, whenever we've gone to the Roadster show to put a car in amber, you know, anytime somebody's come to me and said, hey, I want to put the car in the Roadster show, I'd like to go for amber. I've always said the same thing. If you're not prepared to lose, don't do that. I don't want to do the car. I mean, I would be that straight up right in the beginning. If you're not okay with losing, then I can't do this car for you. Now, if you're okay, just like you said, if you know, build the car you want, just what you want, do it the way you want, the car you dreamed about, whatever. If it doesn't win, you still have the car that you dreamed about having. Because I've shown there many times and lost way more times than we won. But I've always said to my customer, you know, if you're not prepared to lose, don't do this, because there's only going to be one guy and you may not believe that was the car that should have won. Mm-hmm. But it's the way it is. And I'll say that of all the years that I've gone, except for maybe one time, I would say that the car that beat us deserved to beat us. The first time I ever showed, the first time I put my heart and soul in this car and we lost, and I had to say, we didn't deserve to win. You know, we didn't. When I saw the other car and I looked at it and I go, God, we had a great car, but it wasn't great enough. And I'm okay. Every time we've lost, except for 1 year, and I won't even tell you the car, but I'll tell you what happened. The night we had it all set up, Chip came up to me and he said, hey, I got to tell you something about your car. I said, yeah, what up? He goes, you got it on the wrong carpet. And I go, what do you mean? He goes, it needs to be on a white carpet. And I had it on a black carpet. And I thought we had a beautiful car. And still to this day, it's a beautiful car. And I thought we had a really good shot that year. I go, I think we have a really good shot. And he said, Roy, you need to get it off that black carpet. Your car is beautiful, but it's not popping. It's not showing. I go, Chip, it's Thursday night at 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock. He goes, well, we got all night. Let's do something. I go, where are we?
And he would have helped you.
Oh, Chip wanted. He was pushing. Come on, let's do it. And I go, what can we get? We can't get it. Well, if we can't get a white carpet, we'll go to Home Depot and get some rock salt and pour rock salt. And I should have listened to him. And I said, Chip, come on, man. I'm all done. The car's set up. The lights are on. And I will honestly tell you, since that day, every car I've ever taken to the Roadster show has been on a white carpet, because I screwed up and I looked at the car and after he said that, the next car I put on a white carpet, it popped, because you're seeing the car, the black and Chip said it to me that night. The car is beautiful. The black's taking away from the car. And he was absolutely right. And so I said, okay.
If Chip applies himself, he might be able to make something of himself in this industry.
Yeah, I'm trying to help him with
plugging away. Yeah.
I've done my best to help him, but I don't know what I can.
Yeah. So how many Amber wins do you have? Out of the shop.
87, 2013, three. When was the last time we won with the touring, the tub, the Ferrari Roadster, the track Roadster? 3 times. We won 3 times.
I would get
2 times in. See, my first Roadster show I went to was 1977 when I had a booth. That was my first show. No, 78. I went in January of 78. That was the first booth I had, and I've had a booth in the Roadster show every year except one year when they moved it to LA. I was so frustrated that it left the Bay Area that I was boycotting it on my own. And I just was heartbroken that they moved it to LA.
What year did you move it down to Pomona?
I'm sorry?
What year did you say? What year they moved it south?
Right, you can't ask me the years.
Because I remember I went
years ago.
The first time I ever went to the Roadster show, the Grand National Roadster show, it was still in Northern California, and I think I went to 2 years. Was it 2 or 3 years? It was in San Mateo.
It was in San Mateo only 1 year. It was it was at the Cow Palace 1 year.
I never made it to the Cow Palace.
They were transitioning from the Oakland Coliseum to find a new venue, and they took it to the San Mateo Fairgrounds. They took it to the Cow Palace, and they took it downtown San Francisco 1 year in a building downtown San Francisco. So it's like 3 years. It was 1 year. It was outside of the Coliseum. They did it in a tent.
Yeah.
And then that's
my
when
first year I know was San Mateo that I went out.
Okay.
I remember that.
And Bobby won that year with his 32 Roadster. Bobby won the one in San Mateo. The car that he built, the full fender red 32 Roadster, Bobby won that year. Yeah, I don't remember what year it was.
I think it's an excellent turnout every year. I mean, we've taken cars a handful of times, and I still go every year. And me and my buddies start talking about renting a house and stuff, and she's like, "You going again?" I'm like, "Yeah, if I can afford to go, I'm going to the Roadster show every year. That's one of my favorite events to go to, even if I don't take it. I actually probably have more fun when I don't take a car." One of the coolest, we drove out west. We had a panel truck that we did for an oil company as a promo vehicle, and my buddy bought it, and it got invited to be in the truck and van display, I don't know, 3-4 years ago. So we decided to drive it out from Houston in January. Ice, snow, all kinds of weather you could possibly think of. And then as a Midwest farm kid, we got out there a couple days early, and then we drove around hot rod shops. As a Midwest farm kid, I never even thought that I'd go to California for anything. And I got to drive one of my builds out there because it was not a big show car. It was a driver, but it still got invited for the Roadster show display. And, just went around the hot rod shop and went to Marcel's driving something that I built. I was like, that was one of the coolest trips that my customer let me do with a vehicle that he bought from me, so Yeah,
Well,
we go out west instead of go east like you guys.
well, you know, that old Rod and Custom saying is, East is neat, but West is best.
Yeah, yeah. Wouldn't want to live out there. I like Tennessee a lot, so yeah.
Yeah, I don't blame you. I don't blame you. California's a little crazy right now. You might want to stay out of California.
No.
Well, the Roadster Show, John Buck's done a wonderful job with the Roadster Show. I had my doubts when he first took it over, and I had many conversations with John, but he's done an outstanding job with it. I mean,
And that grounds is excellent for that event. All the different buildings and all the places people can pull in outside, and it works really good, I think. So
yeah, having the outdoor event is really cool, and the Suede Palace. He's got enough cool stuff going on now that you know you're definitely getting your money's worth going to that show. There's so much to see. So
yeah. This has been great.
Is there anything that you said, just keep asking you questions? You said you wouldn't be able to talk for an hour. Do you realize that we have talked for over 2.5 hours now?
No, don't say that.
We have talked 2.5 hours.
Oh my God, it's past my bedtime.
Yeah. Well, it's later here. So it's definitely past my bedtime.
We didn't even really touch on a lot of stuff, but that's fine. I mean, who's going to sit down for 2.5 hours and watch us?
Well, a lot of people put them on in their shops or their earbuds.
Or when they're driving east.
Yeah, when they're driving east, I listen to podcasts all the time on the road. So yeah.
All right. Well, I'm gonna watch it. I don't. It's funny. I don't really watch a lot of stuff. I don't know where I find the time to do it. I mean, I don't do, Instagram. I mean, unless somebody shows me something on it. We have an Instagram account. We have a Facebook account, but Jack and the guys, they take care of it all. And they show me stuff every once in a while. If somebody goes, "Hey, tell Roy hi," or whatever, they'll tell me.
I know some of the guys in the shop, they listen when they're working with their earbuds.
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes that they're listening, they listened to Bill's the other day, I know. So yeah.
No, they do. They listen to it, and that's cool because luckily, what we're doing here, that's probably while I'm talking to them, my lips are going like this, and they're going, yeah, Roy, whatever. They're not listening to me. Well,
they probably are not going to listen to your interview while at work, because if you come out, it'd be like there was two of you there.
Yeah, there you go. I'll have to check and see what they're listening to now.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure I'm going to come up with 100 more questions. So maybe sometime we'll get you on a part two. So right off, what did you think that we missed? What is there one thing that you thought that we missed up? There's a ton of stuff, I know.
I think we did fine. I think we did.
Yeah. This was
hard to put 50 years in an hour and a half or 2 hours or whatever we're doing.
Yeah.
But it was fun, and I'm glad that we did it. And thank you for having me. I don't do this, but I hope it all worked out. And if somebody's interested in listening,
as a hot rodder that's only been in this industry 32 years, I want to thank you for giving guys my age somebody to look up. You've always been a positive influence to a bunch of guys. Me and Zane will be like, "Oh, did you see what Brizio's doing?" or something like that. So I'm a hot rod historian, kind of. So I'm always one of them. I can't believe people let me in the room when I go to the Hall of Fame dinner or whatever like that at SEMA or the Roadster Show. But, I always try to do things to honor people like you that I say, and I'm friends with Daryl Starbird. I talk to him every 2 weeks.
Tell Daryl hi for me, please.
I will. Guys like you guys built the roads, knocked down the trees, made the path for us to continue on. And our goal is just to honor our work ethic and craftsmanship from the guys like you that we all had the pleasure of looking up to.
Thank you very much. I've been very fortunate to look up to many guys before me, and to think that now people are like looking at me because I'm old. But
who was your guy, real quick here, that you looked up to? Like Daryl Starbird. People look up to Daryl Starbird. His guy that he always went to for answers was Carl Casper. So everybody has somebody that they like, "Oh, this guy helped me," or "I wanted to be at this guy's level." Who was your mentor that you could call, or who did you look up to?
In the early days, of course, it was building models, Ed Roth and George Barris and all that. But I will say that Pete Chaporis was probably one of the guys that really helped me, because Pete was probably 10 years old. Well, Pete would have been a little older than Pete was probably about 12 years older than me.
Mhm.
So Boyd and Pete were about, about 10 years or so older.
The podcast that goes up here before yours will go live. Yours will go up, what, next week? Or 2 weeks?
Yes,
next week. The one that goes up this week is the VZ brothers. So we talked an hour about stories of them working for Pete. So it's pretty good.
Well, Pete obviously was a great guy. But when I started my shop, Pete and Jakes had just started pretty much a year or two before me.
Mhm.
So, Pete was always somebody I could lean on. And he was a great guy, obviously. And,
Yeah.
whenever I see his son, Pete, I don't know if you know Pete Jr., and
Yeah, not that well, but I've met him a few times. I went to their open house party so did what seemed like 10,000 other people during the Grand National Roadster show.
Well, he was a little kid when I first met him, and of course now he's taller than me. I love catching up with him, and Pete's wife Carol is an absolute sweetheart, and we had a lot of fun together, Pete Chaporis and myself and our families, but he was somebody that I really did talk to. He even came up one time, which this is early in my career. He called me one time and said, "Hey, I want to come up and see you." He came up and stayed with me for a night. All he wanted to talk to me about business and where I was going, where my head was, just as a friend. And I'll never forget that.
That's awesome.
He was somebody I can call up and lean on. And Pete's a good guy. Was a good guy. I hate to say it. And we had a lot of fun together.
Cool. That's awesome. That's a pretty good one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
I guess we're going to wrap this up. Again, we want to thank you very much,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Roy Brizio. Is it BrizioHotRods.com, the website?
What I don't know. What my website or what
Yeah.
Roy Brizio StreetRods.com.
Oh, RoyBrizioStreetRods.com. Just Google Roy Brizio and everything comes up. Yeah. So we want to thank you for being a guest on the Strange Motion Way podcast. I've been your host, Tim Strange, along with
Carrie Strange.
And thank you very much.
All right. And you're going to close it off because I don't know how.
Yeah, we'll shut it off here and we'll be gone. Are you going to the SEMA show this year in a few weeks?
I'm actually going the weekend before, whatever, holiday. Halloween weekend. There's a concourse there at the Vegas concourse they're doing. And we're bringing Beth Meyer's 32 tub out, the one that won the Roadster show a couple of years ago. We're going to bring that on display, and Ross asked me to come out and go with them to do that. So I'd like to stick around, but we're probably going to head home Sunday. And the drags are going on that weekend.
Yeah, I'm going out early. I got to do some announcing and MC work, and I do new product judging at SEMA. And I like to go out early on the years that I don't take a car to SEMA and go to the drag races. So, yeah.
Yeah, I hate to miss it more than anything to see my friends, because I did SEMA for 20 something years in a row. And then I just, like people go, "Are you going to SEMA?" I go, "I really have no reason to go except to see my friends."
Yeah. It's
we don't have
changed too.
cars.
It's still a monster event if people listen to this have never been. But we've been going 27, 28 years now, and it's not like it was, but it's still awesome. So.
Yeah. Oh God, it's so impressive. Everybody's got to at least go there once.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Or at least twice, because the first time you're overwhelmed and your mind can't take it in. So the second time is when you can actually take it all in.
I remember the first time I got so many free catalogs, I had to buy a whole nother suitcase. Now I'm just like, somebody tries just scan this and send it to me. So
yeah, exactly.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Awesome. Thank you.
See you guys. Thank you.
Hey, welders, ready to upgrade your gear and save some serious dough in the process? The Miller Build with Blue Savings and Rebate Program has you covered. Find amazing deals and cashback rebates on a wide range of Miller products, from welders to plasma cutters and everything in between, all backed by our 3-year warranty. Don't let this opportunity pass you by. Take advantage of the Miller Build with Blue program now. Visit us online or stop by your nearest Miller distributor today to start saving.
The Strange Motion Way podcast, brought to you by
Royal Purple. Premium synthetic motor oils and high-performance chemicals have been designed to improve performance, provide long-term protection, and give you the confidence to push your vehicle to the limit. Royal Purple Premium Synthetic Motor Oils.